The Raptors lose a heartbreaker in double overtime to the Oklahoma City Thunder, 135-127. Welcome to Raptors Tonight. I'm Randy Urban, joined by Sherman Hamilton, Paul Jones, and Eric Smith. Eric, I'll start with you. Raptors had their chances to win this one, obviously. What went through your mind on that second attempt to win at the end of the first overtime?
I think Alvin Williams said it well on the broadcast, so I don't want to sound like I'm just parroting him, Randy, but I think a lot of us were probably thinking it, with the trades that have been made over the last month or so and with the direction the team's going, the keys have been handed to Scotty Barnes, and we're kind of in a new era with this team being built around Scotty and RJ and obviously Emmanuel quickly. And I thought that Scotty, should be kind of making the decision and making the play himself. You want to see him kind of go into attack mode and either, win the game for you, or perhaps it goes to a double overtime. But when Scotty ultimately has the ball in his hands, it takes a couple of dribbles, and then with little time remaining, just sort of flicks the ball over to Gary Trent 22 feet from the hoop and gives it to somebody else. I don't know if that's the play that was run. I'm assuming not. I don't know if it was a broken play, if OKC took away what Toronto was trying to do, but I would have liked to have seen the game kind of decided or continued in Scotty Barnes' hand and nobody else. I think if nothing else, that's a learning moment for Scotty Barnes and for the Raptors as a team. And I just think it was an opportunity that unfortunately they let slip by them.
Mm-hmm. Jonesy, what do you think about that decision to defer? And do you think Scotty's deferring a little too much in the later stages of the game?
Listen, I didn't hear Alvin. I was calling the game on the radio. I made the same observation, though. There's a couple pieces to that. It is a learning experience. It's a learning experience for Scotty. It's a learning experience for this team coming together. And it's a learning experience for Darko and the coaching staff in terms of evaluating, assessing personnel, knowing where you want to go in the ball, with the ball, improving some of your plays at the end of the game. It is a huge learning experience. I just thought that Scotty wasn't as, and I don't know what it was, but I didn't think he was aggressive as he could have been. In the fourth quarter and two overtimes, he was 1 for 3. 1 for 2 in the fourth quarter, and an air ball in the second overtime on a 3 with the shot clock running down. So is that Scotty being not aggressive? Do we need to see the ball given to him more, having him initiate the offense, make the decisions, be aggressive with the ball? So there's a lot of questions to be worked out there. But, what I go back to is the way they got the lead in the first half. Aggressive, playing downhill, really good defense. The game plan, obviously, to double team Shea, take it out of his hands, try to contain, contest, rebound when other people were shooting shots. Wiggins shook free for a couple, but for the most part, they did a pretty good job in the first half. And I didn't see that continue in the second half, and Oklahoma City eventually ran them down. So I just think we've talked about it. One of the toughest things to do with a big lead is to stay aggressive, because you get complacent naturally. The other guy gets ticked off and plays harder naturally. And Toronto just couldn't maintain in the second half.
Sure. What stuck out to you when you saw the sort of breakdown of the Raptors, lead here in the third quarter, fourth quarter, and what'd you make of the overtime?
Well, I just thought it was hard for a young team to be consistent on the defensive side of the basketball with that level of intensity. They were locked in that first half. They were rotating. They were communicating. They had so many possessions defensively where you saw multiple efforts on single possessions, scrambling to close out shooters, closing down the lane, rotating out again, communicating, switching at a high level. And it just shows that it takes a lot to do that for 4 quarters, and the Raptors struggled to do that in the second half. And they're a young team, so you can kind of understand why that would happen. But I do think when it came to the third quarter, fourth quarter, especially the 2 overtimes, that we're used to seeing Scotty Barnes in the middle of those fights, swinging, throwing blows, being the guy who's initiating stuff. For some reason, we didn't see that. And to me, it was one of those things where I was trying to put something together to figure out why he wasn't as aggressive as we're used to seeing him. And that impacts the Raptors' ability to play offense and to be a team that has multiple options because of how he plays. So it was interesting. It was good to see Emmanuel Quigley kind of get to that fight and that rhythm after missing so much time and being in the middle of it. RJ Barrett did a great job as well. but you could see the missing piece was Scotty, and that's not something we're used to seeing. Just in terms of level of aggression, whether it works out or not, doesn't matter. I want to see Scotty throwing all of his weapons into the play and making sure that he gives his team a chance to win.
Yeah, and Eric, on the breakdown of the lead, those Dort and Giddey threes in the fourth were huge. I know you want to make Giddey a three-point shooter, but you have to be at least in the same area code when he's taking that shot, or else he's still an NBA player. He's going to make those.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe to Sherm's point, Randy, where things really got away from the Raptors in that second half. I thought they were doing a better job of balancing the way they were defending in that first half, and they were active in the paint and then getting out on the shooters. And in the second half, I thought it just completely went out the window. And whether that was fatigue, whether that was execution, coming from a better standpoint from Oklahoma City, I thought, Randy, it wasn't just late in the game with Dort and with Giddey. I thought it was, man, almost every single three-point shot we saw in the second half. That might be a bit of an extreme, but it seemed like regularly, consistently, Oklahoma City was getting open look after open look. And I mean, even late in the ball game, I can't remember now, Randy, if it was the first overtime or the second overtime, the closeouts from the Raptors, even when they were trying to get out, you had two guys closing out on a shooter, leaving 3-on-5 situation, in terms of trying to defend against, that ball whipping around. It was just, whether it was, again, execution, communication, whatever it may be, the Raptors were just kind of falling apart at the seams with their perimeter defense the longer and deeper we got into this game and deeper into the overtimes.
Jonesy, you wanted to jump in there? Or?
I would love to see, I'll go back and look at it now, but how many of those three-point opportunities came off offensive rebounds? They had 14 offensive rebounds for 22 points. We know it's difficult when there's an offensive rebound. That's the best time to get the three. The defense is bent out of shape. And as you said, for an NBA player to have somebody bat the ball out to a guy standing there and then make the pass to a guy who's locked and loaded with nobody around and the defense scrambling for a three-point shot, that's a great time to do it. So, it means you've got to contain and have multiple efforts. Excuse me. All the time, and Toronto didn't have that in the second half.
Yeah, and I think there are a couple things. You guys mentioned it, the second half, the attention to detail and the intensity on the defensive end just wasn't sustained efficiently. When they were kicking it out to Josh Giddey and Wiggins in the first half, and even a Chet Holmgren, you saw the Raptors rotate, stay within closeout distance, but not give up the drive, because that's what those players want to do, and Lou Dort as well. The second half, those guys were having more time to operate and make decisions. That means that the offense is controlling the defender now, and that's what happened too many times. The other thing is, if you're an Oklahoma City player and you see that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is getting so much attention that the Raptors are saying, we know he can beat us, but we don't think you guys can beat us. In that second half, guess what? Josh Giddey stepped his game up. Lou Dort stepped his game up. Chet Holmgren stepped his game up. Wiggins stepped. They all stepped their game up to show that they're just not a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander team. And I think you've got to respond to that too once that starts to happen. So you tip your hat to OKC for making the necessary adjustments with the way that the Raptors are doing such a good job defending Shai.
Yeah,
Randy, Shai ties a career high with 14 assists. So he was willingly giving it up, to Sherm's point, when the other guy said, okay, we're here to help you. Okay, I'll give it up. And like, that's a big double-double for him, 23, 14. And I think he only missed the triple-double by one rebound.
Well, and Eric, when you think about all the times he was doubled and the ball was forced out of his hands, just what a performance from him. Just your thoughts on his game tonight.
Well, and I first of all, clearly, as Jonesy notes, when you tie a career high with the assists, on a night where I think you were probably happy with how you played him and contained him for a good chunk of the evening, he still walks away filling up the stat sheet and having a career night in some senses. And I think where Toronto maybe shot themselves in the foot a little bit as well is going into overtime when you've got Shai playing with 5 fouls. And this maybe goes back to where we talked, a few minutes ago about the Raptors, whether it be the last play that they ran at the end of regulation, whether it be the last play that they ran, at the end of the overtime. You've got to me, be aggressive and go into attack mode a little bit more. It's a hell of a player. He's a talented player, but trying to go at Shai, get him off the floor. He's playing with 5 fouls, and he ended up staying out there the entire overtime, both of them, and was able to still finish off the game. And to me, that's whether it's a lack of awareness, lack of execution from Toronto, you got to go at the guy. And I think that could have really made a big difference, clearly, in getting him off the floor for Toronto in that overtime session.
All right, Jonesy, hypothetical question then. With that being said, say Embiid doesn't play the minimum 65 games to be eligible for the MVP award, and the Thunder win the West. Should Shea win the MVP?
No question. No question. He might be my front runner right now, even with things going the way they are. I mean, listen, look out for the LA Clippers come April, May, and June. They are rolling, and they have 4 guys, each of which was the guy, not only on his team, but in the league at some point when you talk about Kawhi, Paul George, James Harden, Russell Westbrook. But if we're talking about a full season encapsulated with your team's success, boy, it's tough to look past Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and what's going on in the West right now with the improvement that his team has also shown from last year.
Sherm, can he edge out Jokic shooting 1,000% from the field?
Yeah, he can. Yeah, he can. I mean, those MVP races, obviously they have the 65 game minimum, but when you're talking about trying to get a bit nitpicky about numbers, I just look at the team that's winning more. And right now, if you look at it, Oklahoma City is leading the West. And that to me would tip the scales in terms of Shea. Just want to say one thing about this game, about the Raptors as well, guys. These are the kind of games that I want to see for this team every single time they hit the floor.
Absolutely.
If you want to steepen that growth curve, you want to see these guys accelerate in terms of getting to levels that they need to get to. These are the type of environments they need to be in. I really, really enjoyed what they showed in the first half. It says that they've got a lot of things that they have to put on display. Sustaining it is where the maturity comes, but these are the battles that show you how to get better in the fray. And I think they can't have enough of these challenges throughout the rest of the season.
Hey Randy, can I jump in for a second there too?
Yeah.
It's almost tying in both of your last questions to Sherm's point about learning experiences, but also then Shea with the MVP. Sherm spoke earlier about the Raptors being a young team, and he's 100% correct. They are young, but they do have a couple of vets that are still playing as a part of this rotation. And I'm not contradicting at all what Sherm's saying. But you look at Oklahoma City as the first or second youngest team in the entire league. Nobody anticipated them being this good this year. We all thought that they were on the up and they were going to be better. But did we think they'd be this good, talking about being at the top of the West at almost the 50-game mark of the season? No chance. And who's the main cog in that? Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Who's the vet on this team that's the glue guy in the starting lineup, let alone coming off the bench? It doesn't exist. It's a bunch of young dudes on this team that are hungry, and it's being led by one guy. So if we are voting for MVP right now, it's Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, period. Like, whether Embiid's healthy or not, to me, it is Shea, to Jonesy's point. And that's where, now tying it again back to Sherm, with the Raptors' young learning moments, hopefully then they can be better tomorrow night, be better and learn from this. That's the key. You're not going to be going on some extended, massive 10-game win streak, we assume. It's a matter of, can you learn from this and get to a point where you can say, whether it's in a year or two or whatever, that you're the OKC, you're the young team that is now hungry and beating teams because you're connected and you're cohesive and not just having to rely on experience or vets. It's a young crew that just plays above itself because you're talented and you've got each other's back.
Listen, Randy, I'll add this. I like what I saw from Toronto tonight, in spite of the loss. And to Sherm's point, yeah, you need these games to harden you. You need to, this is development, right? Development is sometimes couched in losing. And Oklahoma City's gone through that, and they've taken a huge leap. But I also give the Raptors credit for bouncing back from that debacle in Houston, where they really looked out of sorts. It was the first game back for Pirtle, the first game back for Quickly. They were really never in that game, lost every quarter. What are you made of? What are you coming back tonight with against the best team in the West? And they were right there. I will be very interested to see what they come back with tomorrow night on the back-to-back in New Orleans. So I give them a little bit of credit. The loss hurts. They've learned something, but you've got to keep fighting through these and continue to learn and improve if you're going to eventually be a champion.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, great stuff. Going to stop it there. Next game for the Raptors, Monday night against the New Orleans Pelicans. Tip-off goes at 8 p.m. Eastern. Raptors Tonight will go live on YouTube shortly after the game. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.